Hi, my name is Chris Brennan, and this is your horoscope for Libra and Libra rising for the month of January of 2019. Joining me today is Cam White. Hey, Cam.
Hey, Chris.
And we're going to be looking at your transits for the next few weeks, so let's jump right into it. So here's a transit chart that shows where the planets will start at the beginning of the month and where they will end up by the end of the month. And then here's an ingress chart that shows the specific days in which planets will move into different signs of the zodiac, when they'll go retrograde or direct, and when they'll make exact aspects or configurations with each other in the sky. Where should we start this month?
Let's go ahead and start on the fourth house stuff that's going on with Mercury ingressing into Capricorn on January 4th, as well as the eclipse that we're having on January 5th in Capricorn as well. And this is bringing, a lot of the attention this month is on the fourth house of family, your home life, your private life, where you center yourself, your parents, your heritage, things of that nature. And I believe as Mercury starts to make its way through Capricorn, now that's out as Sagittarius, Mercury's wanting to define and bring clarity and bring more lines of communication in this realm of family, parents, your home life, where you live, and things of that nature.
Yeah, definitely. And this is really amping up a lot of that Saturn transit that's been happening over the past year when Saturn moved into Capricorn and into your fourth house of your home, your family, and your living situation about a year ago in December of 2017. Now we're going to start to get a whole series of eclipses starting this month with the solar eclipse starting on January 5th in Capricorn that's really going to light off and really going to ignite some of those changes, or at least accelerate them, that have already been slowly building up over the course of the past year.
Yeah, and Mercury is eventually going to make a conjunction with Saturn too, so that's really speaking the message of Saturn. And Saturn in that fourth house, where family, living situation can feel, restrained, constricted. However, I really think with Mercury going through here, this is going to be the time to really focus on these things and have a Saturn attitudes towards handling what issues Saturn can bring. And that's, facing these difficulties with a sense of discipline, with a sense of maturity, with a sense of what needs to be done, what needs to be handled in an efficient and effective manner.
Yeah, so restructuring things sometimes at home or with respect to the home and living situation and private life. Since this is a solar eclipse that's taking place in your fourth house this month, it's sort of laying a new foundation or setting the seeds for something that will grow and develop over the course of the next 6 months with respect to your home and living situation. So for some people, that can mean like starting to initiate the process of, moving to a new place or relocating. For other people, it can be like starting a new project at home. That's something that's not going to immediately pay off, but instead it's something that will eventually pay off in the long term, especially 6 months from now, when eventually there's going to be a lunar eclipse in Capricorn in the same sign, which will like connect those events in 6-month intervals.
Yeah, and then we're also going to have those eclipses in Cancer in your 10th house afterwards. So I guess the analogy that you made of a project at home, what it's going to manifest and create to definitely will show up later in 6 months when we have the eclipses in your 10th house. However, this eclipse, this is a whole new moon. This is resetting it, all of the intentions right there, looking at things through a different perspective. It's both the luminaries focused on one sign. It's like bringing all of the attention to right there, and what needs to be addressed, what needs to be handled. This is, a solar eclipse, so this is dealing with the South Node at this time. And the South Node has a lot to do with where your past is and where you've came from, and it also has to do with what you want to let go of in order to start moving forward ahead. And I really think as Mercury transits this part and hits Saturn, as we have this eclipse right here, this is just really looking at what problems are you facing in this area and where do you need to fix and tidy those up in order to move ahead.
Definitely. All right, so that's happening at the very beginning of the month, and that kind of opens that pile up, or that traffic jam in Capricorn that you can see at the bottom of this chart is what the month opens up with. But immediately after that, we start getting some of the other major transits for this month, which are Uranus stationing direct in Aries on the 7th of the month, 6th of the month. And then immediately after that, Venus moving into Sagittarius on the 7th of the month.
Yeah, and I think that Uranus going direct is going to be actually quite a big deal for Libra risings, more than most of the other signs, just because this is in your 7th house of relationships. And since December 31st, like the last day of 2018, we've had Mars move into Aries, and now that Mars is in Aries in your 7th house, where Mars is he's not retrograde in Aquarius, he's not in Pisces, he's finally in his home sign where Mars can be the most Martian that he can possibly be. Mm-hmm. And Mars being in your 7th house is, relationships may be taking a little bit more energy. And when we say relationships, the 7th house is interpersonal relationships. So that can look like a intimate level, a personal level, or a professional level. So Mars is definitely going to have you guys having more energy, meaning to, I'm losing my words right now.
This is the last horoscope that we're doing, so it's been a long couple of days.
Yes, it has. Mars is just having you take more energy, put more energy into the relationships that you have. However, Uranus going direct right there, where Uranus has been making relationships super shaky, up and down, revolutionizing
revolutionizing,
changing the way that you do relationships or interact in relationships. I think this one last big bang of Uranus going direct and flying forward for the last time in Aries for the next 80 years is really going to be a big wake up of hey, how can you interact in relationships? How can you be innovative? How can you be creative with how you work in relationships, both with putting your energy into relationships as well as the problems that you're dealing with relationships? Because Mars can also start be angry. Mars can start irritations and problems right there. So when you're dealing with those problems and those agitations, Uranus is kind of hey, do you want that to break you down, or do you want to break through and find a creative and innovative way to really handle relationships?
Yeah, that's a great interpretation. And for a lot of people, it's this is the end of a 7-year-long transit of Uranus through their 7th house that started way back in 2011. So I feel for a lot of people, it's going to be this very last station of Uranus in Aries before it shortly after that is going to move out of Aries and move out of your 7th house altogether for a very long time. That is just going to cause you to look back and reflect on some of the ways in which relationships in your life and relationships in general have changed radically over the course of the greater part of the last decade, and how Uranus has brought some unexpected disruptions, some of which were probably challenging, and others of which were probably a little bit more positive. But just to look back and think about some of the major ways that relationships have changed drastically in your life since 2011 as part of the gift or part of the purpose of that Uranus transit over the course of the past decade. And it's interesting that it kind of gets capped off with this Mars transit that only lasts for a month, but it's the majority of January is this Mars transit through your 7th house, which, as you were saying, Cam, brings greater energy and focus to relationships, but sometimes also can lead to more irritation, more frustration, and sometimes a conflict or a separation in relationships as well. So just be careful this month that if you find yourself being more irritable in relationships, or if your partner ends up being more irritable, that you kind of step back and get some space from it and don't necessarily do anything impulsive that you might regret later when you're in a more clear state of mind.
Yeah, it's going to be super easy to pull the trigger and jump the gun on things this month. So especially with partnerships and relationships, take your time, try to be as cool, calm, and collected as possible if anything ever comes up. But it is Uranus right now. It's very up and down. It's unpredictable what can kind of happen in the last couple of weeks with Uranus being there.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of hair trigger stuff going on with relationships this month. But other than that, immediately after that Uranus station, Venus ingresses into Sagittarius on the 7th, and that actually starts one of the more positive transits that's going on this month, which is Venus building up to a conjunction with Jupiter in Sagittarius.
Yeah, and then this is happening in your 3rd house, which is a really interesting place for this to happen. The 3rd house has a lot to do with short distance travel, writing, speaking, communication, expression type stuff. Also has to do with siblings, your local immediate environment, like your neighbors. And so while Jupiter's in this area where Jupiter's wanting you to expand and, see different sides of how you can express, how you can communicate, maybe good things are happening for your siblings or good things are happening to your neighbors, Venus is just bringing this emphasis more and more. Venus is finding the value here. Venus is wanting to initiate the things that are happening in this area. And you guys are Libra risings. Well, if you're Libra sun, whatever, but Libra risings, you're very much ruled by Venus. So Venus is a pretty much bigger deal for you. And especially like what you were saying in the past couple ones, if you were a night chart in a Libra rising, you're definitely going to see bigger manifestations of how you are speaking, how you are expressing. Maybe if you have siblings, good things are happening to them. Maybe you're taking awesome short distance traveling trips. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think this, we've got that Jupiter transit happening in the background in the 3rd house all year for the Libra rising people. But for the people with a night chart, this Venus transit is going to be particularly positive and is going to be a particular highlight of that Jupiter transit when those two planets combine, just because it really helps to stabilize and to create a more solid but more positive foundation for some of the things going on in that house. So if you've had any problems with siblings or other 3rd house type figures previously, this is a good month to reach out to them and to try to reconcile or get back together with those people. Additionally, just because the 3rd house is communications in general, sometimes it can be a good month when you have a Venus transit like that and you have both benefics coming together to attempt to communicate something positive to other people in your life And you'll probably find that if you do that, that other people are more receptive to it and more open to it than at other times.
Yeah, good time to definitely express how you feel, but in a more positive way. And I think this is just going to be a big thing too, with Venus being in Sagittarius. Like, this is explorative, this is adventuretive. See different ways that you can express things, find different ways that you can communicate things. There's tons of different ways that you can communicate the same message.
And even I like you said, taking a trip, like a Venus transit is like taking a trip that would be really positive and just having a pleasant sort of like outing. Here's the actual chart that shows the Venus Jupiter conjunction around 15, 16 degrees of Sagittarius, right around January 1st, January 22nd. So that's really the high point of this entire transit, even though it's kind of like a background thing that's happening the entire month. But on this day in particular, we see the Venus Jupiter conjunction go exact in the early morning sky, and it's actually forming an exact grand fire trine with Mars in middle Aries and the moon in the middle of Leo.
Yeah, and that's the next thing that we got to talk about is the sun will enter Aquarius on January 20th, and we will have the total lunar eclipse, the last full moon and Leo eclipse of this, of the series, on the 21st on the next day. And this is happening in your 11th house of friends, community, social networks, bigger groups of people. Maybe your midheavens right here, so it has a little bit to do with your career stuff too. But this full moon in Leo is really coming, it's kind of closing things out and having one big last look back at what did you learn through this eclipse experience. And with this being in Leo in your 11th house, it's like, where have you gone out and learned to, I guess, gain more friends, have bigger networks, be closer to your groups of people. Mm-hmm. And this last full moon is kind of like coming to a culmination of like, hey, what did you learn? What did you express? How did you find more of yourself and your identity with your groups of friends?
Yeah, definitely. And since this is the very last of this whole eclipse series that's been taking place over the course of the past couple of years in Leo and in your 11th house, it's sort of bringing to completion and showing you the results or the outcome of some new activities that you've initiated in that sphere of your life. So especially with respect to friends, groups, alliances, and other things like that, since this is a lunar eclipse, it would have been connected to something that you initiated, especially 6 months earlier, the last time there was a solar eclipse in Leo. And you're sort of seeing the fruits of those efforts now coming to fruition in your life with respect to friends and groups.
Mm-hmm. And after that, just a few days later, one of the big things that we wanted to talk about was Mercury ingresses into Aquarius on January 24th. But then a few days later, on January 29th, Mercury and the Sun conjunct at 8 degrees Aquarius, which is just a degree off from where the Mars station retrograde was earlier in the summer of 2018. Mm-hmm. And this is a big deal because this is in your 5th house, where Mars was retrograde, problems with children, problems with your love life, maybe your hobbies and creative pursuits were feeling drained, like you just didn't have the energy, you just didn't want to connect. This Sun-Mercury conjunction happening right here, I think, is really bringing a positive perspective and a very unbiased look at, hey, what were the problems that you were experiencing that last, Mars retrograde thing? And where can you really connect the dots now? How can you connect yourself more to that? How can you see things through a more, I like using the word connection because this is Aquarius, but also the idea that the 5th house is what you want to create. The 5th house is what you want to pursue. And the Sun and Mercury conjunction is like finding different angles and finding different perspectives to see how you want to pursue these things.
Yeah, definitely. And for some people, for those of you like with children, for example, the Mars retrograde through Aquarius and through your 5th house last summer may have led to some tension or even some separation or conflict with children. And now that retrograde is over and Mars has moved out of that sector of your chart, and now that we have that Sun-Mercury conjunction happening in the same degree later in January, that may be something about trying to reopen lines of communication with those people and to sort of smooth things out or sort of sweep things up and sort of clean up the sort of mess of some of the mess that Mars caused last summer.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think this is just going to give a very clear and healthy line of communication in that area.
Sure. All right. So are there any other this is bringing us to the end of the month. I'm trying to see if there's any other major transits we wanted to mention or touch on when it comes to Libra and Libra rising.
I was thinking about this when we were talking about it. But what about the Mars-Saturn square that's going on?
So that's early in the month, right?
It's on the day the Sun ingresses into Aquarius, so January 20th. Oh, no.
Okay, so January 20th, we have Mars in the middle of Aries, and it's squaring Saturn in mid-ish Capricorn. So that would be like showing some sort of tension between something going on in the sphere of relationships and something going on at home in the 4th house.
Yeah, and the only reason I want to hit on that too, because I mean, there's a lot of construction work you guys got going on in that fourth house area, as well as there's more immediate type issues that are going on in the seventh house area, and you're gonna find those issues blending together in a non-harmonious way in a little bit. But I really think it comes down to Mars is in Aries and Saturn's in Capricorn. They're both in their, ruling signs where they're both really strong. And I think it comes down to, where do you need to redo that foundation, and where do you need to put more of that foundation in, restructure that foundation that you have yourself in, especially with your family, your parents, and things like that. And how can you integrate that with your relationship?
Yeah, there's just so much going on around that time, around the 20th, 21st, and 22nd, because that's almost simultaneous with the lunar eclipse and
the Venus-Jupiter conjunction.
Yeah.
Venus squares Neptune too.
That's crazy. So look at that. So it's about 13 degrees of Aries where Mars is, and 13 degrees of Capricorn is where Saturn is. So especially if you have any planets around 13 degrees of the cardinal signs, that square is going to be particularly important to you because it's going to be tied into your chart, and some of the tension or some of the different directions that transit is sort of pulling you might be more personally relevant to you this month.
Yeah, either way, it does look quite frustrating, but it doesn't look impossible to get out of. Like, Mars was eventually going to make a conjunction to Uranus too before both of them move into Taurus. Mm-hmm. However, I just think during this time, it's really about blending, not letting all of these problems, especially, with Saturn being your fourth house, those issues around family and parents. And it might just be this Mars and Aries as a specific individual in your family that's giving issues. Right. I think it just comes back down to how do you handle this in a more disciplined and mature, more Saturn way?
Yeah, or even like Saturn in your fourth could be like tensions or restrictions in your home and living situation, causing tensions with wanting to move forward with relationships. And maybe you got a roommate, maybe you want to have somebody over, but like you've got a weird living situation, and that's causing you frustration.
Maybe your neighbors have a dog and it won't stop barking, and you don't know how to bring it
it's
up.
like, who knows? But you gotta watch out, but it's not a huge long-term transit, but it's just a little bit of irritation, especially around the middle of the month.
Yeah, it's for like a day and a half. But I mean, what's also crazy about that transit too is that even though that's really intense, it's also happening on eclipse. It's also happening on the best, thing that's going on in January, on the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. So it's just this like weird mix of energy on that day where it's going to feel frustrating, where it's also going to feel very exciting and happy, where it's also going to feel very reflective of looking back in the past. Just the 20th and the 21st is very intense, to say the least.
Sure, definitely. All right, I think that's bringing us then to about the end of this month's horoscopes for those with Libra and Libra rising, unless you got anything else.
That's about it. I think we got everything.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for joining me today. You actually do horoscopes each month on your personal YouTube channel, right?
Yes. If you guys want to check me out on my YouTube, it's at White Light Astrology. Or if you guys are on Twitter, follow me at White Light Cam. Or for anything else, just check out my website at whitelightastrology.com.
Brilliant. And I'll put links to that below this video in the description page on YouTube for those watching the video version. And in addition, I actually just launched last week a set of 2019 Planetary Alignment astrology posters where I took the artwork from some of the horoscope videos and I put it on a poster. And instead of just being for a single month, it's actually being able to look at the transits in your astrology for the entire year ahead. So it's a great little tool, and you can find out more information about it at theastrologypodcast.com/2019 posters. And I'll put a link to that below this video as well. So thanks a lot for joining me. Thanks, Cam, for doing these with me this month. And good luck in the month of January. And we'll see you next month in February for the horoscopes for next month. All right.